Welcome to 340. Today's episode explores one of the most fascinating and often misunderstood aspects of human relationships: sexual desire. Much of the research on sexuality tends to focus on dysfunction, lack of desire, relationship conflict, or sexual problems. But my guest today has taken a different approach. Detta Prada, a sexologist, writer, and researcher, has chosen to explore something else entirely. What actually sustains sexual desire and pleasure over time? In her work, she combines existing research with her own findings to identify psychological, sexual, relational, and cultural factors that shape desire. One of the most intriguing ideas we'll explore today is what researchers call the desire-intimacy paradox. The tension between the safety and closeness that long-term relationships need and the novelty and autonomy that erotic desire thrives on. In other words, the very things that create love are not always the same things that keep desire alive. Today, we'll talk about attraction, autonomy, shame, communication, and the deeper question of what sexual desire might actually tell us about how we live our lives. Detta, welcome. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
So I thought we'd just jump straight into the questions.
All right.
What made you decide to study sexual desire rather than sexual problems?
Because it's much more fun. I agree with you in your introduction that it very often is problem-focused. All kinds of research is problem-focused. And I think it's a pity because solving problems is like the baseline. But then how do you go forward to increase your desire and your pleasure and keep exploring to all the positive sides of sexuality? That's what interests me more.
No, it's beautiful. I think that's it's a beautiful way to look at it because it's also much more positive.
Yeah.
From a starting point.
Exactly.
So during the process of your research, was there a moment where something you discovered genuinely surprised or moved you?
Good question. What surprised me? You should have asked me this question before so I could have given it some thought. Well, actually, the desire-intimacy paradox, it didn't surprise me that much because I've experienced it myself and all my friends talk about it. But it was interesting to see that there's really lots of research explaining this paradox because it goes against our intuition. We think that love is all you need, really, for good sex. And that's not true. But there were other things as well. I think what was important, I think, is this about autonomy and being authentic in your relationships and in your sexuality. Because so much in relationships is about compromising, getting along, saving the relationship. But it's so important to keep your autonomy, to be authentic yourself, not lose yourself in relationships.
A lot of people, I think, they're looking to find happiness in the relationship per se, not being happy themselves, meaning they believe the relationship will solve the problems they have. So instead of looking inwards and looking at what makes you unhappy or what would make you happy, you try to outsource that to your partner and the relationship.
Yeah, expecting another person to make you whole.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. So, did anything in the research change the way you personally think about sexuality? Or do you feel like it just validated beliefs?
To a large extent, it validated my beliefs. It did. Well, another thing that intrigued me was that there is so much research about the importance of being gender equal in your relationship and also in your sexuality in order to have high desire and get true pleasure from sex. And I think that in a way contradicts a little bit the popular theory about polarity today between masculinity and feminine energy. So that's interesting just because it's two different ways of thinking. We will get into that more when we talk about what really creates desire and pleasure, and then gender equality is a big point there.
Yeah,
so we're going to talk
definitely, and I just can agree with you. I think on polarity per se means that you still start thinking that a man should have the masculine and the feminine should have the feminine, which means that you lock it to the sex, not necessarily that. And I think maybe sometimes I've talked about this before, that I think that masculine and feminine energies are not necessarily the best way to describe it in one way, because you immediately lock it to the sex.
To the gender.
Per se. Yeah.
Yeah. You mean we both have masculine and feminine energy within ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, you talked about that in one of your episodes.
Exactly.
The importance of acknowledging your feminine side as a man, to not be like toxic masculinity.
Yeah. I think it's more about finding a balance, so you can create that balance, and then you move away from the polarization.
Right.
Interesting. So, did anything in the research change the way you personally think about sexuality?
No, I don't think it did. I've given a lot of thought to this. This has been on my mind and interest for years. So really, I just felt that finally, because when I studied to become a sexologist, it was very problem focused. All the courses were about problems.
Yeah.
And I was so longing to, can we please lift the discussion to talk about the positive aspects? So I had so much within me. I wanted to explore this. Actually, I just wanted to find evidence that there's so much more to learn about the positive aspects of sex. So
yeah, I love it. So what do you think we collectively as humans misunderstand the most about sexual desire?
I think we devalue the importance of desire. We think it's something that you should just have or not have. I think many people confuse it with libido, like the biological sex drive.
Yeah.
Desire is much more complex. It is, as you said, it has psychological, sexual, relational, existential, cultural, and even spiritual dimensions to it.
Yeah.
So, and also, as my study does show, and previous research, that desire is so much more than just the want to have sex or the wish to have sex. It's a life force. It's I also did in-depth interviews. Many described it as an enormous part of their personality, their vitality, their love for life, just the energy level. It was, and some even described it as existential to them. So it's so much more than just wanting to have sex.
And it's a good way, because I think a lot of you mentioning, I think, libido, and I immediately connect that with performance, that you need to perform sex as well. So libido means like you need to get hard, you need to deliver, you need to get an outcome.
Yeah.
And I think it's when it's very outcome focused, it immediately becomes very, it's like a scorecard, it's like a competition that you do.
Yeah.
And then I think a lot of people will get too hooked up on that, and then you're not fully present. And that's when you start thinking around, as a man, you start thinking about, can I please her? Can I come? Can I make her happy? And the woman will probably go in there and thinking, am I looking good enough? Does this look good? I need to make sure that he climaxes as well, right? So then you focus on the outcome.
Single dimension.
But you're not in the journey of that, right? So lust can be, and desire can be a lot more than just the actual intercourse.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think here most intercourses, I think they're like when the penetration elements is between 3 and 5 minutes on an average.
Yeah, 3 to 7, something like that.
Yeah, maybe 7, and then an orgasm is like 5 seconds.
Or longer for women.
Yeah, for women, yes. But for a man, at least it's around 5 seconds. But then if you think about how much time you focus on those few seconds instead of actually enjoying all the time before, and even so the time before the actual penetration, right?
Absolutely. I hate it when it's called foreplay. That's really what makes people devalue touching, oral sex. Like that was the prelude to the main event.
Yeah.
So we really need to change that. Foreplay, as Esther Perel says, is the art of seduction. It begins at the end of the previous orgasm. So it's all the courting and all the setting the mood.
And you can, I mean, and foreplay starts, I think, in the small moments you also have throughout a day in a couple relationship, for example, right? And if we talk about that, that's where you can build up a lot of that.
Talk about it, kind of create expectations, maybe have a wish, like next time or taking turns to decide next time I want to do this. And the other time your partner decides what they want to do, creates anticipation.
Makes it fun, right? Just
yeah,
create joy in it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great way to look at it. So, and looking at the findings, we talked about what surprised you the most, so to speak. But are there anything else here that you feel like some of the key highlights that you'd like to sort of explain to the listeners as well? Because it was a quite massive study, and there are a lot of interesting outcomes from it. But is there
what the most important ones?
Like 2 or 3 things that you feel are really the key.
Yeah. Well, the first is positive values around sex. The more positive values you have, it's linked to higher desire, higher pleasure, and even orgasm frequency for women. And negative values impair desire, arousal, and pleasure, and even explains quite a few sexual dysfunctions. So, and also valuing sex as important in life, valuing it for your own individual well-being, not just for the relationship. That was the factor most strongly associated with both desire and pleasure. And that's interesting because it's like a cognitive factor. Values is something we can learn and we can change. So desire isn't just this biological drive that we're born with. It's something we can actually learn, develop, and change. That's kind of hopeful.
It is very hopeful.
Yeah.
I mean, I believe that a lot of things are the body never lies is a key thing for me when I'm thinking about intimacy and sex, and the vast majority of issues sits in the brain, in the mind, in terms of what we tell ourselves.
Right.
And to your point that you can actually reprogram yourself in that sense to think differently about it.
The brain is our biggest sexual organ.
Yeah, for sure.
And this is also what marked the biggest difference between, I divided my participants into a group of people with high desire and low desire, high pleasure and low pleasure. And the value that sex is important to my individual well-being was the biggest difference between the high and low desire group.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah. So that was the big one, the most important, I think, because having that value also make you prioritize sex.
Yeah. How important is that, do you think, to prioritize sex in a relationship?
I think it's very important.
For yourself.
Yeah, masturbation is very important. Yeah, I think it's important because when life gets in the way, stressful life, small kids, lots of people have been in that situation. You don't have time. This is also usually when you see that a couple has a desire discrepancy. If both are okay with not having sex for a year or two or whenever, or just once a month, that's fine. But if one wants it much more than the other, it causes a lot of tension.
Yeah.
And one tip that sexologists give to those couples, just one of them, is schedule sex. So if you decide we're going to have sex every Saturday or every second Wednesday, then the one who always feels rejected, he or she doesn't have to always initiate and have this fear of rejection because they know I'll get it on Saturday. And the one who feels pressure that always has to say no won't have to, could relax those days. And actually, it could be like seeing sex as a dessert after a hard day's work, or like looking forward to a vacation. You can build that into anticipation by scheduling sex one day.
For me, if you do it right with sex and you have the right mindset to it, I think to your point here that it's a good way to look at it as a dessert, but it also is a great way for, if you think about your nervous system, how you relax your nervous system in a good way if you're with a partner that you feel you have some form of love for, that actually is a good way to relax the body and the system as well.
To have sex, you mean?
Huh.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great stress relief.
Exactly. So it's a good way to calm the nervous system in that sense.
Yeah.
That's very good.
What else? Well, lots of the factors most associated with desire are individual. It's about knowing your body and what gives you pleasure. Because if you don't know, you can communicate it to a partner.
Yeah.
And it's about, leading a healthy lifestyle, having self-determination. This is so central to decide when, where, how, why, and with whom I have sex. It's going to be on my terms.
Yeah, that's a very important part.
And making sure that the sex is consensual and mutually pleasurable. Sex and pleasure are intimately connected. I think, I don't know, but I get the impression that people see it as two separate things. But in order to desire, you need to know that the sex is going to be pleasurable. It's the expectancy value theory. If you expect something to be good, you also, or something that you value, you look forward to it. And this is one reason for the pleasure gap between heterosexual men and women, is that women expect less pleasure from sex. So they're less motivated to have sex. And this explains partly why, in general, women have slightly lower sexual desire than men.
Or they tell themselves they have.
Could be. Yeah. But in order to want to have sex, the sex must be worth wanting.
True.
I have some quotes about this from
the study?
From the interviews. I've never desired sex more than I do now with this man. He's an amazing and very attentive lover. How can I not desire sex when I know it's going to give me so much pleasure? Pretty simple. Would you say no to amazing sex? No. Some people want more sex, some people want less sex, but all people want better sex. Don't you think?
I completely agree. I think everybody, I don't think I've met one person who says they want bad sex.
Of course not.
So no, I definitely think that's a given, I would say. So, but then I think the key thing is just what is required for people to meet and have good sex.
What's required? Am I supposed to know the answer to that question? What's needed for two people to want to have sex? Well, desire is a good start.
Yeah.
But you don't have to desire sex before you start having sex. That spontaneous desire. Some people are more responsive in their desire. So actually, arousal could come before desire. So it's not linear in that way. I don't know. I guess attraction. I also like to mention not only the individual factors, but the main relational factor in this study showed that mutual attraction is the main driver for sexual desire and pleasure.
That's an important one.
Yeah, that's an important one.
I mean, I was just also thinking what you said here, that women in heterosexual relationships feel less sexual desire.
Mm.
So what's required for them to feel like they can awaken that sexual desire in them? Because I think that every person has it. Because I've seen so many women who has been in these long-term relationships for 10, 20 years, whatever it might be, and they feel like very to the point here, not having a good sex life or not having that sexual desire.
Yeah.
But then wanting more in life and somehow, and when they end up in a place where they rediscover or discover that later in life, they feel like it's a blossoming in one way where they can truly enjoy themselves and sex with the partner.
Yeah. Well, all the key takeaways from this study actually does give you a list of what could reignite your desire or increase your desire. Should I just go through all the points quickly?
Give a few.
Yeah, I did mention that. The value and priority sex, get to know your body, choose a partner you trust, mutual attraction, keep a healthy lifestyle, and if you do have any sexual dysfunctions, know that they can be treated. I often hear people say, well, I come after 2 minutes. That's just who I am, like telling people that. And it's so sad because that's not part of who you are. It can be fixed pretty easily, actually. If you edge while masturbating, this stop squeeze technique, using a condom, numbing cream, masturbating before you have partner sex, there are lots of things for all the dysfunction you can fix. Sexual autonomy, self-determination, as we said, pleasure, cultivating positive experiences. All our sexual experiences leave traces. A bad experience, we all know how traumatizing that can be, how it can really destroy your sexuality, and it could even be internalized as part of your identity. While positive experiences leave positive trails, make you want it more. Gender equality. Can I come back to that one?
Yeah, we can.
Continue exploring your sexuality, communicate openly, address shame, free yourself from limiting sociocultural norms, heal from trauma, and build your sexual self-esteem.
There are some really good ones.
And then for reigniting the desire, then we're back to the desire intimacy paradox.
Yeah, I actually had that. I mean, can you explain what the desire intimacy paradox actually means? So, I mean, according to science and research, we see that romantic love and sexual desire are governed by two different behavioral systems.
Right. So you can be in love without having desire. You can desire sex without being in love. And what's called the Coolidge effect in research, it was something first discovered in animals, but it's also been seen in humans. In the beginning of a relationship, sexual desire and intimacy often reinforces each other. But after a few years, these are forces that pull in different directions. So as the emotional intimacy increases, you become best friends, maybe you co-parent. Desire increases because those are not the roles we desire.
Yeah.
Those are not the roles that attract us sexually. So it's a paradox in a way, because we believe that coming closer makes us more safe. We trust our partner, then we would desire them more and have better sex. But it's not like that. The Coolidge effect describes that for animals, if they had the same partner, the same sex partner, they lose interest pretty quickly. And the only thing that can change that is introducing a new female partner. You don't have to do that as humans, change partners all the time, but you could do something about this habituation, the over familiarity that comes with years together. It's often becomes routine and boring.
So create more curiosity.
Absolutely. You need to introduce, instead of a new partner, novelty. Esther Perel, she's so, Esther Perel,
Yes.
the famous therapist. I think she's so interesting because she knows the research, but she puts the research in practical context and actually provides solutions to the problems being researched. She describes that. Can I read a quote how she describes this paradox? Love likes to shrink the distance that exists between me and you, while desire is energized by it. While we seek safety and love, long-term passion is stifled by the security, predictability, and intense closeness that modern relationships demand. Desire thrives on the mysterious, the novel, and the unexpected, as you said in your introduction. And here, for example, we have these two forces. Love needs safety. Desire needs mystery. Love needs stability, and desire needs novelty. Love needs closeness, and desire needs distance and differentiation. Differentiation meaning you keep your own individuality, you have your own hobbies, your own friends. You don't do everything together, because then you become best friends and they're not attracted to each other.
Yeah, but can you not be best friends and great lovers, do you think? What is required?
Yeah, I think you can. Erotic intelligence is another of those expressions that Esther Perel has. It's the capacity to manage the balance between the tensions, in this tension. So sure, being best friends, if you then can create this mystery and novelty, keep being curious about each other. Don't think you know everything, you've talked about everything. There are still new things to discover about each other. And you can create novelty sexually. That is so important. That's the way out of routine sex. Just introduce something new. It doesn't have to be big things like having a threesome with someone else or going to a swingers club. It could be just switching roles, having sex at a different time, different place, introducing toys, not only on her, as is the common thought. Well, there are so many things you could do, and there are great. I think there are great tests that you can take. Your erotic blueprint, and there's a list that yes, maybe, and no. So there are lots of suggestions what you could do to get more creative sexually, and you could do that together. You say, yes, I'd like to try this. No, not this. And maybe we could explore this together. There are lots of ways that you could start to have that conversation if you find it difficult to talk about sex, which many unfortunately do.
Yeah, because I think that's one of the biggest hurdles I've seen with a lot of people is how afraid they are about talking about sex and intimacy, even with their partner. And then you get really locked up in a conversation like that, or you don't even communicate about it. You get locked up in your modus operandum, if you will, that you've had, and then you don't try anything.
Right.
So
it's so important. So research is pretty clear that open communication is the key factor linking sexual pleasure sexual satisfaction and relationship satisfaction. And in my study, it was the biggest difference between the high and low pleasure group, not the desire group. They both had pretty high, they both groups reported having open communication about sex around 70%, and in the low desire group 60. So it wasn't a big difference. The big difference was between those with high desire and low desire. In the high desire group, 81% said they could openly and honestly communicate about sex with their partner, and only 8% in the low pleasure group.
Oh,
so what
that's a massive
it's a massive difference. What this tells me is you can't have pleasurable sex unless you talk about it openly. And it's about your desires and wishes, and what you're curious about exploring. And before communicating that, you need to know what you like. You need to know your body, as I said. And let me read a quote that I found pretty interesting. It's from a 49-year-old heterosexual monogamous Scandinavian man. There's no bigger turn on than a woman who knows what she wants sexually, who expresses it and guides me to give her maximum pleasure. I've heard from several of my friends that their female sex partners don't communicate their needs in bed, and that it's usually not just because they don't express it. Many say these women don't even know what they like, even women in the 30s and 40s.
I think a lot of men and women are in that situation where the man doesn't know what the woman wants because she doesn't even know herself.
Yeah. Could be the other way around also, but it is more common among women. And why is that? Because we don't masturbate as much as men. Women masturbate 40% less than men. And we start much later in life.
And why do you think that is?
Well, the most simple explanation is that the penis is outside the body. So a boy could easily find it, while the vulva and the vagina is more, hidden.
Yeah, to be explored.
And also because women's sexuality has always been more stigmatized.
So what I've seen in a lot of the conversations I've had is around how a lot of particularly women, but this happens with men and women, but particularly women has a lot of shame around the body and sexuality and are being taught that from an early age.
Yeah, absolutely. Body image issues is a huge problem.
Yeah. Yeah, but also just around pleasure as a concept, it seems like that it's almost nothing you should be talking about or explore.
What do you mean?
That particularly if you're coming from certain groups, it might be that sexuality is something you have to wait with. It's not about pleasure, it's about fortification or something like that. And it's not about the actual sexual desire.
Right.
Therefore, you're not exploring it. Or you're not supposed to be exploring it.
No. In many cultures, it's like that.
Yeah.
It's something for men's pleasure and it's a woman's duty. It's not like that in Sweden anyway.
No. So why do you think many people believe that more emotional closeness automatically creates more sexual desire when research suggests that that's not always the case?
I think it's an ingrained value. It's the Disney illusion. It starts with the Disney illusion about the soulmates. And I think it's
romantic Hollywood movies.
Yeah, and the monogamy norm. We're so ingrained in these ideals that we think that, loving partners or soulmates, it must be the best base for desire and good sex. I think it's just ingrained values. We need to question that.
That's a good one. So, do you think modern relationships sometimes try to eliminate that very tension that desire needs?
Yes, absolutely. Love wants closeness.
Yeah.
In the beginning, we seek more and more closeness. That's what drives us to another person.
And then staying curious and getting that tension. So it's sort of, it is a contradictive.
It is. It's counterintuitive in a way when we're ingrained in these soulmate ideals. And also, this ideal actually is only applicable to people who are demisexual, those who really need an emotional connection in order to desire or even to want to engage in sex. More women than men are demisexual. Men in general are more sociosexual, meaning they don't need the emotional component, the emotional connection, and could even be more turned on by sex where there is no emotional connection. So they like more casual sex.
Yeah.
So
I can see that with men in general, that I think that also might vary, though, whether or not you're in a long-term relationship and have that emotional connection versus being single or not in a long-term relationship, if you will. So, but I do agree on the fact that I think men in general find it easier to have sex more regularly.
Yeah.
Or casually.
Casually. Yeah.
So, in your research, you found that mutual attraction, self-determination, and body knowledge were among the strongest predictors of high desire.
Yeah. Mutual attraction was the biggest, the most noticeable relational factor.
Yeah.
That I thought was interesting.
So what do you think those concepts actually mean, though, in real life?
What is attraction?
Yeah.
Or what?
What mutual attraction, self-determination, and body knowledge. If they're such a strong predictor of high desire, so what do they actually mean then in real life? How would a couple or an individual incorporate that in real life?
Those are three different things. Yeah. If we focus on mutual attraction, that's also interesting. What research shows that there is very little research on attraction actually when it's related to sexual desire. But what we discovered is that attraction precedes sexual desire, and desire predicts overall relationship satisfaction, while the link the other way around is not as strong. This also touches on the desire intimacy paradox.
It does. Yeah.
Desire is actually more important for relationship satisfaction than what relationship satisfaction is for desire and pleasure. So desire is massively important in relationships.
And I think that's also where a lot of people are downsizing that or not prioritizing that.
Right.
You're focusing on that emotional element and keeping the house in order, so to speaking.
Yeah.
But not stay curious with your partner.
Right. It's very important. And I hear men and women are different too. Women want to be desired. That's for many women, it's their major turn on is to feel desired by their partner. While men want to be the desirer, the one who desires their partner. So for men, it's very important to find an attracted partner. And for women, it's more important to find a partner that is attracted to you.
Yeah, I think in one way, I mean, if you look at men in general, we were hunters when we were sort of a long time ago on the fields, open fields, and hunting was, I guess, part of the process, right? That we wanted to hunt, and it might be a part of that you want to feel that.
Could be. There's always an evolutionary aspect to everything. That's where it all started.
Definitely, and I think you mentioned it on the body knowledge, and I think that is about how you actually masturbate yourself and get to know your body and know what you like and don't like.
Yeah, it's fundamental.
I mean, in one way, I think in any relationship, I think you can only take responsibility for yourself. And if you start liking yourself, accepting yourself, and ultimately, hopefully, then loving yourself, I think that's a great way of, it's your responsibility to do that journey for yourself. And like what we said before, you can't outsource your happiness to your partner. It's your responsibility. And then a great part of that is understanding your body and
and you can't outsource that to get pleasure to your partner. It takes two to tango.
It definitely does.
Yeah.
So that's a very interesting element.
Yeah. Well, there are several other points that we haven't talked about. Can we go back to gender equality?
Sure.
Which I think is the most important.
Yeah.
Because gender equal dynamics promotes fairness, teamwork, and communication. And the problem when there's no gender equality, I'm thinking about the traditional gendered sexual scripts, which normally means, I'm talking about in heterosexual couples, which usually means short foreplay, as we talked to, and quickly on to penetration, and the sex ends when the man finishes or orgasms. That has been the traditional script. And what this script also says is that, well, most people have an automatic association between sexuality and power. I know you've talked about that before.
Yeah.
And this reinforces the stereotypical behavior in sexual context. Like, this is an assumption that the man should be the more dominant initiator and women the more submissive gatekeepers. This research has shown that this leads to, it's a risk factor for low desire, low pleasure, and even sexual dysfunction in both genders. And also decreased autonomy and agency, particularly for women, because if they have this more submissive role, it also often inhibits their sexual expression. And being assertive with what you want and what you need leads to higher pleasure. This is quite interesting, I think, because many people are stuck in these traditional gendered roles. Maybe don't even question. That could also be like an ingrained value. This is how it should be.
Yeah, it's inherited, I think, in one way.
Yeah, and now you saw this research that just came out about Gen Z men.
Yeah.
Where wasn't it like 30% of these young guys said that women should never initiate sex?
Yeah. That they wanted to be, definitely be more dominant and let the woman be very submissive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we know that assertiveness leads to higher desire and pleasure. But I will say this is not the case when a dom-sub dynamic is an explicit sexual preference. That's more like in kink play.
Yeah.
That's another thing. I'm talking about these people who just have sex not in a kink.
Yeah, more like a vanilla sex type.
Yeah. Vanilla sex, exactly. And in my study, this was one of the relational factors that was most strongly associated with both desire and pleasure. 8 in 10 said they were in gender equal relationships and had gender equal sex. Can I read a quote?
For sure.
We see each other as separate individuals with equally important lives outside of family life, so we don't just get stuck in the traditional gender role. And we always have sex on equal terms, meaning only when we both want to and in a way we both enjoy. 30-year-old, heterosexual, consensually non-monogamous woman in the multicultural group. And here's another one. He has more traditional values than I do. He follows the same script every time. Short cuddling, oral sex, and then moving too quickly to penetration, and he finishes after just a few minutes. I wish he had more patience with oral sex and showed me more enthusiasm about pleasuring me. That's a 40-year-old heterosexual monogamous Scandinavian woman.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it feels like the social and cultural norms still restrict a lot of people's sexual expression.
Absolutely.
More than we realize, I think.
Yes, very much so. It does.
Yeah. So what do you think happens to desire when someone stops prioritizing their own pleasure or desire?
Yeah, what happens? That's what women have done historically. Historically, men's sexuality has been prioritized. And also in this traditional gendered script we're talking about, it leads to women prioritizing their male partner's pleasure.
Yeah.
This is also something we know from research that the main motive to have sex for men is their own pleasure, and second, their partner's pleasure, and third, emotional closeness. For women, their first motive is emotional closeness, second, their partner's pleasure, and third place, their own pleasure. So what happens when well, it's a good thing. This is like sexual communal strength, as Dan Savage calls good giving game. It's great to focus on your partner's pleasure. That's beautiful. But you also have to focus on your own.
Well, I mean, I think for a woman, if a man is sort of down prioritizing emotional safety for his partner, the woman is not going to feel emotionally safe to truly be in the moment and be enjoying sex in that sense.
Yeah.
Because if that's number one for the woman and last for the man, it becomes very...
Yeah, there's a discrepancy there.
There's a very big discrepancy.
Yeah. We do have different needs.
Well, yeah, perhaps, but I think it also might be around how men are looking at sex, right? Because a man knows it is easy for a man to come in that sense. And it's easy for a woman to come as well, but generally, I mean, a man is... Yeah,
heterosexual, we know the orgasm gap.
Yeah, there is an orgasm gap, but in general, it's sort of, a man doesn't necessarily... If you're a middle-aged man, you normally know that you can come unless you're super stressed and have a lot of things going on. But then you need to focus on relaxing, I guess, in general. But the key thing is more about how do you find the right way of meeting your partner and seeing her and focusing on that. Because if you do that, you will actually have so much better sex for yourself and for your partner.
Yeah.
So flipping that around is sort of...
You've experienced that? I know.
Yes, but it's much more about how, when you go into that, it's sort of the beauty of that, I think, is sort of, it opens up doors that is just amazing when you do that. And creating that, I think that's a part of the reason why I wanted to do this podcast from the beginning, right? It's like really around showing men that there's a different way to be a man, a different way to look at your partner, and a different way to create intimacy and sex and pleasure that is so much more focused on creating common pleasure. And if your partner is really enjoying it, I can guarantee you as a man, you will enjoy it so much more.
Yeah.
Than if you're just there for in-out release type of thing.
I've heard from so many men that there is nothing sexier than a really horny woman who shows, who explicitly expresses her desire.
And you know, the funny thing is this, right? That there are so many men who say, I want a woman who wants more sex. I wish my partner would want to have more sex.
Yeah.
And they say that until they actually meet a woman who wants more sex.
Then it becomes too much pressure.
Well, not pressure, is it? Like, you're not going to keep up, because then you actually have a woman that actually will want to have so much sex that you're going to be in a place where you can't please her.
Yep, tough situation.
That's a tough choice. Be careful what you wish for.
Exactly.
So another question here, though, was what does sexual autonomy really look like in a relationship?
Ah, good question. I wrote a novel about that. It takes me 405 pages to explain. No, but it really is about being true to yourself, not pretending to be someone else, something else, adapting parts of yourself. That's also something important. I'm thinking in many different directions here. It's actually one common reason for why people cheat in relationships, in monogamous relation, or in any relationship actually, is that they are looking for a part of themselves that they have lost. Another thing that Esther Perel says is that a common dynamic in almost all relationships is that one person is afraid of losing the other, and the other partner is afraid of losing themselves.
Yeah.
So one partner might have a bigger need for autonomy. So if you compromise too much to save the relationship, if you always put the relationship first, you will miss parts of yourself. And then if you lose your autonomy, it's like losing yourself. It's a pretty big thing.
It's a very big thing.
And sexually, I mean, it's so close to who we are that not being authentic sexually, I think that runs really deep.
It does, and I think there's a lot of people are afraid of expressing it, and it's something you don't talk about. And if you don't talk about it, not even with yourself, you might only talk to yourself about it in your head.
Yeah.
Then it becomes very hard to find pleasure or desire in the right way.
In
that sense,
it needs a lot of self-awareness.
Yeah. Self-awareness, I think, is really the key starting point, and healing starts around that. I think.
You talk a lot about that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people talk about self-love, and I think self-love is sort of the result of the journey you get to. And if you get too obsessed with just loving yourself, I think you're missing a bit of the trick.
Okay.
And I know that I've talked a lot about self-love, and I think it is definitely an important part, but I think it starts with awareness. Self-awareness is when you become aware of yourself. That's first of all when you know that something is triggering you, what you like, what you don't like, that you are literally aware about why you react to things. That's the first step. And then after that, you can start accepting yourself, that you feel I am accepting myself for who I am. And then you can start liking yourself. And that's when, I feel quite good about myself. I can enjoy myself. And then you will have moments where you can start actually loving yourself for who you are, for what you look like, for what you do, and how you express yourself.
Yeah, that's a lovely journey.
It is, but I think the important thing is just understanding that journey. It is a journey. It's not necessarily that a lot of people talk about, hey, I need to love myself. I need to love myself. I have to love myself before I even meet someone.
Exactly.
And if that's the goal, then I think you miss so much of that personal journey you can make.
Yeah, and it's a misconception. I think it's really pretty ugly to say that if you don't love yourself, no one else will love you, or you won't be able to love someone else. That's like taking it really far.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's hard. I mean, even if, I accept myself where I am. Okay, fine. If I accept myself, you can accept me for who I am. Or if I like myself, you can like me. If I love
but
me,
even if you don't love yourself, you could find a partner who sees the good things in you that you don't see yourself. If you're very insecure, all of a sudden someone else sees that. That makes you grow. It makes you like yourself more. So we're not just isolated islands as people. We grow and develop in relation to others.
And I think, it is in connection with other people we do grow, right? And if you don't, you become, yes, you will not get hurt and you will probably live, but you're not going to live with desire, lust, connection.
You're not going to flourish.
Friendship, or any other connection if you're just going to be in a bubble somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And the desire and the lust element is sort of a big part of of that. And I mean, you mentioned before when we started the conversation around that it's a life force, right? So, and I think sexual desire, and the way I'm looking at it, I mean, I think sexual desire is definitely in some way a life energy or vitality, and it is a true
Vitality.
life force.
Right. Isn't it the second chakra, the sex chakra, is considered to be the engine of life energy? I think I read that somewhere. I'm not good at that, but I know it's very central, the sex chakra.
Yeah, and I mean, as I mentioned before, like I said, that a man is looking for a woman that wants more sex until he meets one who likes more sex, right? I think why that is, and then we can become even philosophical about it, but we don't have to go there. But I think that's the reason for that is that life starts in the woman, and it is a part of the life energy. So that's why it is so powerful, and that why women are so powerful, and that they can enjoy so much more if they truly go down that path around pleasure. And a man is sort of, masculine and dominant in many ways, but when a man orgasms, it takes a while to recover, right? But for a woman, that's just the opening door.
Yeah. She could get more energy
through that.
Feel euphoria, and the man wants to go to sleep. I mean, these are stereotypes.
It is. I mean, I'm generalizing a bit, but I mean, the point is, I think, particularly from a sexual desire element, I think that it is, particularly the female sexuality, I think it's definitely a life force. In that
More
sense.
so than men, you think?
No, I mean, men definitely has life force in them themselves. We give life in that sense. We can create life. I mean, again, men and women are in strong need of each other to create life as well. If you would talk about creating life, but in that meeting, that's when true life energy really meets in one way, right?
Yeah, that's philosophical.
It is very philosophical. So another question though for you: what happens to a person, do you think, when desire then disappears, not just sexually, but also more psychologically?
What happens when desire decreases?
Yeah.
I think you lose part of your vitality, since it is a life force. I think many people just accept sometimes changes in life, like you have small children or even menopause. This is quite disturbing. I think many say, like, oh, my wife lost interest in sex in menopause. Like that's something natural we have to accept. No, it's all because of hormonal imbalance. You can fix that. You don't have to lose your desire. And when you do lose your desire, sometimes people think that's, I don't need sex anymore. So they kind of close the shop. I know that's pretty common. And sure, people can live like that if they want to, but it's pretty
It's a very shallow life when you end up there.
I think you close a big part of your own energy and aliveness. I think you die a little if you do that. That's my personal, I don't know anything, no research about that, but that's my personal opinion. So,
I mean, on that, just to follow up on that though, you think we could look at desire as a signal to how authentic we live?
Wow, what a question. You think I have answers to all these philosophical questions? I don't know. Ask me again.
I mean, do you think that desire can be a way to show a signal how authentically we live?
Yeah, in a way, I think desire points out the direction. Don't you think?
I completely believe so. I'm convinced.
And that goes for all kinds of desire. It points out the direction, what we're motivated to do.
Yeah, I would agree on that. It's for me, I think desire can be, I mean, how authentic it is, because desire to me is connected to how much you know about yourself. You said self-acceptance.
Yeah.
And if you're not authentic with yourself, you're not present, You're not aware of yourself. Therefore, I think it is tightly aligned in my mind about how accepting yourself, being aware of yourself.
Absolutely. It goes hand in hand with all your other episodes, really. Yeah. Authenticity is self-awareness, it's all of that.
Yeah, and then desire is born from that in one way as well. I think if you're not for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Lust and sex, I mean, I think there's a way of looking at this. I can look at darkness in one way, right? That's one place you can start in many ways. That you feel shame, you feel how you form your sexuality and all these things. And that can then be born into lust. Lust can be much more the sexual desire and how you explore it. It doesn't always have to be good, but you don't always have to be connected in it. I think there's a following phase after that that will be more awakening.
Mm.
How do you awaken yourself? And that's when you become aware of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you can feel lust and desire without being aware of yourself.
Yeah.
But when you truly want to get to the point where you can, as a woman, for example, enjoy fully, or even as a man, be there, authentic, and be strong and guiding and directing, but also give in and be much more in desire. I'd like to call it more like a dance of polarities in one way, right? That you actually dance between each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can
actually... And that you mean that the woman could also be the one guiding, initiating,
yes. And
looking at the direction.
Be enjoying and being in pleasure and receiving in that sense, right? So that's a part of the dance I think a lot of people are missing as well.
Yes.
You're thinking that it's only supposed to be in a one-way direction.
Exactly.
And the dance for me is truly when you start seeing that. And that means going back to a bit more of that polarity conversation, which I'm getting a bit fed up with or frustrated with, I think it may be a better word.
Me too.
That it's much more actually about how we meet in the middle and how we dance between the two. And flex between them in one way.
Yeah, finding the balance. Isn't balance the answer to all questions in life, really?
It is. And what I like to call that is actually how we integrate the two. Mm-hmm. So the last step on that ladder I was talking about was much more how you actually end up in integration and how you start working together in that sense.
Okay.
How do I take my masculine and my feminine energies, if that's what we talk about, or the yin and yang, and how do I balance them? How do I find that balance within me and within the relationship I'm in? Because when you do that, that's when you can actually create that dance between those polarities that you have within.
Yeah. And the balance between desire and intimacy. Desire and love intimacy. Yeah.
So if people are listening to this episode and they would remember one insight about sexual desire, what would you want that to be?
Free yourself from what constrains you and nurture what allows your sexuality to be expressed with autonomy and authenticity. Oh. So it's freeing yourself from shame, from cultural norms, from gender traditional script, and nurturing all that gives you desire and pleasure.
And life is so much more fun when you do.
Yeah.
So do you think is there anything you feel is important to protect or nuance when we talk about sexuality publicly?
We need to protect?
Yeah. Or
you mean not talk about?
Yeah. Is there anything you feel is important, or should we just be very open about it?
I think there is nothing about it that we shouldn't talk about. I don't.
I agree.
What could that be? I mean, we need to talk about the bad things, the trauma and the violence that goes on, and we need to talk about the positive aspects to have more desire and pleasure. Everything needs to be talked about. Taboo topics too. But, of course, you should respect when things are absolutely taboo to talk about. If you're in a particular cultural context, I mean, you need to be respectful. I can sometimes be too open, and I've realized that I need to be careful because the one I'm talking to might not be as open to talk about these things and could get very intimidated. So
respecting each other is an important element.
Yeah.
No, I can agree on that. Detta, Thank you so much for joining today.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
It was great to be here.
Today's conversation with Detta Prada reminds us that sexual desire is not simply a biological impulse. The interesting thing with Detta's study is that it's covering both hetero and homosexual people. One interesting thing with Detta's study that we didn't really talk about in our conversation, albeit it was much more focused on just the heterosexual element, is that half of the people were actually homosexual. And also there was a big difference between whether or not they were monogamous or open to multiple partners. So, however, the conversation really shaped how we relate to ourselves, to our partners, and to cultural norms surrounding us. And I think her research really highlights the importance of factors such as autonomy, mutual attraction, communication, and the freedom to explore sexuality without shame. Perhaps the most powerful insight is that long-term desire does not come from eliminating tension in a relationship, but from learning to balance intimacy and individuality. Make sure that you stay curious. And I'm going to link to Detta's work so you can look at her study yourself. You can also have a look at her book and also her novels that she's been publishing. They're quite inspirational. Thank you for listening. Stay open, stay honest, and stay present.